But yeah, we're going to close out with sort of our Twitter handles and any goodbyes you've got, or any plugs that you've got, man. Like if you've got any websites or anything that you're a part of, then feel very. Bleh. Jesus Christ, get your words out, Ben.
Hey, right, you can feel very free if you want.
Jesus Christ, feel good. Yeah. Christ almighty. What's up, guys, and welcome to episode 8 of Podcast Reload. It's the general gaming podcast by Sifted.net subscribers, where we invite community guests onto the show to talk about the games industry in all its weird ways. I am your host, Vin Hill, and joining me as always is, of course, my co-host and fellow Japan dweller, Evan Piotrowski.
Hello.
And joining us as well is our community guest, which is Tom.
Hey, what's going on?
And Tom, you're known on the site as, what was your username, sorry?
Washed123.
Washed123. Okay, I never know if it was like was HD123. It's like you've just become standard definition recently or something. I was really confused by it. I'm like, was HD? What happened?
I actually have no idea. It's not I don't know how to pronounce it. I just call it Wash because that's what everyone else says. But I got it literally because I slammed my face on the keyboard and then that's what came up.
Are you serious?
Yep. Dead serious.
Sounds like I've got a good friend of mine who he was looking for like a Wi-Fi password, like when he first installed his router. This is a random story, but it's relevant to an extent. But he was just looking around his room like, what the hell can I call my password? And he saw like a can of like deodorant. So his password for like the last 10 years has been can of Shaw. It's just like, what?
That's perfect.
It's like whenever I like visit home or whatever and I see him, it's just like, oh yeah, can of Shaw.
That is perfect.
Oh, good times. But yeah, moving on. We haven't actually got any corrections this week, so pretty much no housekeeping, I don't think, right, Evan?
I don't think so. I didn't see anything in the comment section that said we were wrong. Yeah,
no. So all gravy on that front. But yeah, we should move on to our question, which we pose to every single guest every week to sort of gauge what sort of game they are. So for you, Tom, this is your question. You are stuck on a desert island. You can take one game with you along with its corresponding console. What do you choose and why?
So I would have to say if I was going to choose one game, it would have to be Mass Effect, the first one.
The first one.
Okay. The first Mass
interesting.
Effect. Yeah. Well, because to me, that was honestly... there's so much that they could have done to improve on it that they failed to in 2 and 3. But I think it's really the best one out of all of them, to me, at least. And I put like hundreds of hours into that game, and I wanted to hate that game when it came out because I was that was in my very, very fervent PC fanboy days. So the fact that it was like a console RPG, I wanted to hate it, but
you were ready.
Your master race, like
I was.
Feelings are coming through, like no, we must hate it.
No, but
that's awesome, man. Like I don't think I actually ever finished number 1. Just because I can't remember, like another game came along or something, but I really need to get back around to them. Like I've sort of been hoping for like a remaster to come out for the whole trilogy, but I think EA are a bit against that. So
I actually recently played and beat one, like I think in December last year. There was a sale. I had never played it before. I never owned an Xbox 360, so I started on 2, went to 3, and I went back to 1. You know, I like it a lot. I think the story is cool. That some of the shooting aspects are a bit rougher on the edges, but
yeah, especially in number 1. I think that's what turned me away. Like just the shooting mechanics weren't all there, but I heard they got like a hell of a lot better, like in the second game. So.
Yeah, in some ways, but like that's what I'm talking about. Like there's so many ways they could have improved on 1 that they failed to. Like I really like the RPG aspects of the shooting in 1.
They slimmed that down in 2.
They weren't even there. It was pretty much just like the upgrades were just almost nothing.
All right, so it become more of like an action game in the second one rather than an RPG in the first one. Yeah, that's interesting. I do need to go back and play them now. But yeah, it's a good pick.
You should. It actually Mass Effect 1 has actually caused my laptop to catch fire.
That's epic as it is, like why wouldn't you want to play it then?
There are still burn marks on the bottom of my laptop because of Mass Effect 1.
Yeah, I bought the PS3 like when I was in America last. I picked up the box set of like the PS3 versions of the game.
Yeah,
but the PS3 versions are so like poorly optimized.
yeah.
I think every game runs at like 20 FPS or something. It's kind of hard to play at times. So
Yeah.
I might pick up the PC version and crack through them again.
If you have a PC that can run it, definitely get it on the PC.
Yeah. All right, fair play. Okay, we're going to move on to what have we been playing this week. So we'll start off with you, Evan. What have you been playing this week?
I'm still playing Resident Evil Revelations 1.
Okay.
Just not really anything new. That game needs a dedicated dodge button, but
like every other Resident Evil ever.
Yeah, I do like it a lot, and like Resident Evil Revelations 2. I don't even really talk about Revelations 1. I pretty much just want to talk about Revelations 2, but I see these two games and I can see like they should look at these games and say this is what Resident Evil should be from here on out. Like I hope they take what they've learned from these two games and bring that into 7 in some way. But,
as long as they don't remake 6 and some spiritual successor, then I think we're all good either way, right?
Yeah. It's just a little. They're stripped down. It's a little more tension heavy, light on horror, but heavy on tension. But I think it works, and the shooting's great. Enemies are creepy. Yeah, hopefully in the future for 7 that they look at these two games and make it in a similar fashion. But yeah, that's it. Nothing much for me.
Fair play. How about you, Tom? What have you been playing?
So I actually just finished Borderlands again for like the third time, and I've moved on to Borderlands 2 to try to finally finish playing that game.
Nice. You're a PC gamer, right? So you're playing it on that?
Yeah, that's my platform of choice.
Cool. And how you find it? Is it still holding up, or?
Yeah, actually, I think Borderlands 2 is a example of how to make a sequel, because they really took everything that made Borderlands 2 good and just expanded on that while taking a lot of the parts that weren't so good and kind of removing those.
No, I was just gonna say I never actually played the first Borderlands, so I never saw that evolution of they taking like improving upon what they built in the first game. I never got to experience that. Is it worth going back?
I mean, I really enjoy Borderlands. It's probably still one of my favorite games. It is a lot of, like I said, the only issue it really has to me is like the pacing is bad as far as the story goes, and then the fact that there's no post endgame content. And there's like a few little minor things here or there that, like I said, that they definitely improved on in Borderlands 2. But other than that, yeah, it's I would say it's definitely worth going back and at least checking it out. It still holds up.
Okay. Yeah, I quite enjoyed Borderlands 2, so maybe I will go back to it. All right, well, Vin, how about you? What have you been playing?
This week, I played a little bit of Battleborn. I got onto the beta for that because we've got an open beta going on at the minute.
How is it?
It's kind of, I've got mixed feelings about it. Like I can't judge it too much because it is a beta at the end of the day. But like there's so many like similarities between it and Overwatch.
Right, like, those comparisons are they're gonna happen, right?
Yeah, well, it's completely valid as well because they're so similar. It's like creepily eerie, like how these two games were made alongside each other without any sort of knowledge of knowing about each other. It's like how close they are. But yeah, I mean, it's the same sort of aesthetic. It's like this sort of mixed batch of characters, like cross between anime and Disney, you know, just like shooting at each other. But at the minute, like there's a lot of issues in the game. Like it feels more like it should have been a traditional sort of MOBA, you know, like top-down thing. Because at the minute, like when you're running around in first person, there's just so much stuff going on the screen. I think Shane might have brought this up in Game Face actually, but there's so much going on, you don't even know what the hell you're doing half the time.
I think he did.
There's like characters that are like 5 times as big as you, and if they run in front of you or whatever, like you can't see a thing. It's like they literally block the way. It's crazy. You just can't see anything. Well, other than that, the load times are like really bad as well. Like at the minute, to get into a game, you're in a lobby for like 3 minutes.
Ugh.
Then once you're actually in the game, once you actually like get matchmaked with someone, you are stuck in a lobby again for another 2 minutes. And then sometimes when you die, it takes a minute to respawn. So it's like you're looking a lot of the times, just like looking at these little timers tick down so you can get ready to get back into it. But other than that, I mean, I'm not really much of a MOBA guy anyway, but it works as an FPS to an extent. It just feels like it falls a bit flat on the delivery, but you never know. Like the game comes out next month, I think, so, or within the next couple of months. So, they might fix a lot of these problems that they got with it. So
I'll keep
an eye on it.
When does Overwatch come out?
Overwatch is next month. I think it's like May 8th or something like that.
Wow, so they're basically coming out within a couple weeks of each other?
They're right on top of each other. It's crazy, like how close. Like this rarely ever happens anymore, where games sort of like come out and twinge, But this is they're really close to each other, and it's hard not to compare them.
Right? Yeah. Let's see what happens. I don't know. I think that game's going to get trampled by Overwatch.
Yeah, it's Blizzard, man. They've just got too much money, They're just going to throw marketing at it. It's probably going to be a great game. To be fair, it's Blizzard. They rarely make bad games.
No, they make the best, but
yeah. Well, there's always room to fail, as it were.
Right.
Yeah, we should move on to our main focus in the podcast, which is the small three. In the small three, we can basically take any topic that we want to talk about. This can be a game that we're really excited about, a non-topical industry topic, a game that we really hate. It can be absolutely anything that we want to be. So in traditional sense, we're going to start off with you, Tom, our guest, and start with what is your topic of the small three this week?
So my topic is basically remakes versus remasters, and what's kind of the best way to play older games.
Well, how about you? Like, what's your flavor of choice, as it were?
Personally, I think honestly, I think the best way for me, I like remakes better than. But it honestly depends, because sometimes remakes completely change the entire feel of something. So sometimes the remaster, to me, so I don't. It really depends on the game. It's kind of a hard thing. But I prefer remakes just because. You got that whole new engine, you got everything going for it, and it kind of updates it, and the developer gives the developer a chance to use technology that may have not been available at that time the game was made to completely change things for the better sometimes.
Yeah, I think we just recently saw Ratchet and Clank come out, and that's been getting really good reviews.
Yeah.
And that's, well, a lot of people are saying it's not a remake, it's not a remaster or whatever, but it's heavily influenced on the first one, but they've brought in like everything from the previous sequels, as it were, and put them into the new one, and it's really interesting to see how people are reacting to all that.
Yeah, and it's I think I like remakes just because I know some people. We could get into this whole conversation about Final Fantasy VII remake, but some people just want to play the exact same game, but with basically updated graphics essentially. But I'm not that kind of gamer. I've already played Final Fantasy VII, and I would rather play a game where there's new things to discover, right? I want new surprises,
just some things that wouldn't work in that remake as well. Like,
right,
there's one part in Final Fantasy VII where you're trying to get to a certain place, but in the water, like between you and this high spot, there's a dolphin, and you've got to jump in, and like this dolphin flips you up, like by its tail, and like flips you up to this higher point, and it takes every single party member, and it does this with all of them. It's like, can you imagine that in current gen graphics of like a dolphin flipping you up? It's like,
I do not remember that.
Hell. Yeah, no one does. There's a good reason why your brain ejects it out. It's terrible.
Exactly. Well, yeah. So there you go. It's like you don't need to put that in the game. It doesn't need to be in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Try new things. Expand it out. Actually, with Ratchet and Clank, I heard one of the complaints was that they didn't really do much to the game except add a couple guns. Right.
Which I don't get, because like the thing to me is like if they had tried new things, I guarantee you they would have had a complaint that they tried too many new things and these things failed.
Right. And so there's also that, right?
Yeah, so like I don't know. So to me, like the other thing is when you have like a remaster of a game, it really almost feels like a cop out, unless it's something where like the game came out, like The Last of Us, for instance. I think okay, that's fair enough. It came out at the end of the cycle, the new consoles were out. That makes sense that they remastered it so people could play it on a new system. But like generally speaking, when they remaster games, it really kind of feels just like lazy way to get them out again. Versus completely remaking the game from the ground, especially if it's an older game.
Right.
Yeah, well, they've just I don't even know what to call this. Like, it's not really a remaster. It's not really a remake. The Final Fantasy 9 version just came out for Steam.
Yeah, yesterday. I would call that a remaster.
Yeah,
I would say
there's
remaster,
like there's certain points. There's certain points where like they haven't touched it, but then there's other parts where they have. Like the backgrounds are just these like pixelated messes. Still, and I think a lot of people. Are
it's so with those updated character models, the backgrounds are so muddy. They stand out.
That's the thing. Like if they just kept in the original character models, I don't think it would look even half as bad. You know, but just because you got like the stark contrast between these super crisp, clean, new updated like character models next to these really like
totally
standard definition. Out. Yeah, it's just it makes it really hard to look at. So.
And the other reason I want to talk about this and why this was my topic is also because the whole thing when Sony announced that the way they were going to bring PS2 games to the PS4 was basically through emulation, and that you're going to have to rebuy the games and stuff like that, and that and people were getting like super offended that why can't we just have an emulator on the PS2 or on the PS4, and why can't we do why do we have to pay for it again, all this stuff. And I don't know have any of you ever used a PS2 emulator on the PC?
Yes, I have. I've tried. But
that's pretty much.
I haven't.
It's not. It doesn't. It works and it works okay, especially if you play around with the settings a little bit. But then there's so many games where there's little hitches there and there. Like, for instance, I've been playing Black and.
That's a great game.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that.
That's why I wanted to play it again. But all the skyboxes are messed up. Everything else looks pristine and perfect, and it's upscaled and it's great. But the skyboxes are completely wrong. Right. And I don't think people realize how much it takes to actually emulate a game. Where I'd rather rebuy it as a remaster or remake or even at least emulated where I know that I'm paying for this. At least I know they're going to put, it's not just going to be a lazy effort than just having a flat emulator on the PS4.
Yeah, I don't think the PS4, like PS2 emulator is a bad idea whatsoever. Like, and I'm quite happy to rebuy games. It's like at the minute, I think Sony's got their price point a bit wrong at this point. Like I think that's the major complaint. I mean, $14 isn't that much to like most of like hardcore gamers, but to the average Joe, $14 for a PS2 game is a bit, or $15, I think. Sorry, my bad. It might be a bit too expensive. It's sort of like what Square always do with whenever they remake a game or put it out on iOS. It's like $20 for a game. That's
their prices are ridiculous. Their prices are so ridiculous. Like you're scrolling through games. It's like $2, $3, $5, $20. Like wait, what? Oh, of course it's Square. Just I think the price point thing is a good point to make. Like. I don't really have a problem rebuying games, especially if it's like, do I want a PS4 next to my PS3 so I can, if I want to play Final Fantasy 9 again, I have to turn my PS3 on. It's like, well, if the game was $5, I might, buy it on PS4 just so I can put my PS3 in the closet,
I think that's the problem though. Like when it comes to like the emulation stuff on PS2, so if I own the game physically, like if I've got a copy of Final Fantasy 10 sat on my shelf for the PlayStation 2, oh, sorry, like any game that like shows up on the PS2 sort of marketplace and PS4. Like if I own that game and I've got the disc, I can see the frustration of like certain gamers. It's like I've got it in my hands right here with the disc in my hand. I've got a PS2 over there. I can put it in. Why is it making me rebuy it if I can just put it into my PS4? Like I can see that argument if they own it already.
That's what I was trying to argue like with people on that is it's that's really such a sense of entitlement to me because like yes, I get that it's frustrating and yes, I get that obviously that would be the best thing and we all want that, but at the same time when you buy a game, you're buying it for a specific system. You're buying it for the PS2. You're not buying it. There's no reason the developer has to allow you to. And then the fact that it's not an easy thing to just emulate it on another system. Like it's people think it's like the super easy thing that can just be easily done. And it's like,
yeah,
like, you know how many complaints Sony would get every day if they just had an emulator on there, and then things like I was talking about, like with Black, where the skybox is just completely messed up. Their support line would be just tied up with people doing that and just complaining about that.
Right.
No, I agree. Yeah, it's a good point.
That is a really good point. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's what I think people are like missing is, yeah, it's there's a huge difference between things that we really want to have that would be great to have, which is, you know, obviously that would be amazing, but at the same time, it's not something that any of us are entitled to. And that's why I think there's a huge disconnect with gamers where, you know, is it just something you want, or is it something that really we are actually entitled to when we buy a game?
Yeah. But yeah, for me, I think I pretty much prefer like remasters, because I think remasters normally, because you get something extra as well. Like if I buy an emulated game on the PS2, it's like I know it's just going to be okay. It's the same game, maybe a bit upscaled, but it's, you know, I'm not really getting anything extra. But like all the remasters that have come over the PS3 and the PS4 over the past like sort of 5 years or so, like the majority of them, like, you know, like if a remaster comes out, it's probably going to be a game that's critically acclaimed. A lot of people are going to like it, and a lot of the time you get all the DLC for free as well. Like they normally patch that in there or whatever.
Yeah.
Or like, we'll look at one of my favorite remasters is the Shadow of Colossus and the Eco Collection.
Right.
And actually, I don't know if they packaged those two games together in the States, but in Japan, it came in this really nice case, and it came with an art book. And just like the art book, you know, it's like the Super Mario Maker art book. It just shows kind of like concept art and like how they figured out these games and like some level design and stuff. And it's just a really, really cool package. And, you know, it's one of this like SD to HD, like Shadow of the Colossus in HD. Like, yeah, here's my money. And it's, it really works for those types of games. And like a lot of people complain about like the PS4 remasters, but like there's too many of them, like God of War 3, like why, right?
Yeah.
Or Journey, why? But some games like God of War or The Last of Us, like a lot of people migrated from the Xbox 360 to the PS4, and some of these exclusive games, like they never had the chance to play them. So if you're giving someone who'd never played The Last of Us a chance with the new system, like I'm all for that.
Yeah, I know a lot of people like that as well. I've got a good friend of mine from England. He didn't have a PS3 whatsoever. Like he went from Xbox 360 to PS4, and he'd never played Uncharted. He'd never played The Last of Us. He'd never played any of the God of War games, like since the PS2 era sort of thing. So like when he got a PS4 and all these like back catalog games started coming out, like it was awesome. Like he was in his element. It was like every single week there was like another 10 out of 10 game coming out for him, you know?
Right. Yeah,
and he doesn't care about current gen graphics or anything. He was loving it.
Yeah,
I'm trying to talk my brother into playing the Uncharted collection, because he was the same. He went 360 to PS4. He's like, should I play those games? I was like, yes, please buy the collection. Get on that. Yes, you should. Yeah.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, I see. Like for me, the remasters are fine if it's a recent game. Like I'm totally fine with the PS3 to PS4 remasters.
Right.
Because there's not much to touch. I mean, honestly, the biggest issue with the graphics and stuff last generation, and gameplay and stuff was mostly resolution and stuff, which is easily bumped up with a remaster and frame rate. But if you're talking about, like, to me, if you're talking about like for instance, Final Fantasy IX, I would have rather have seen a remade Final Fantasy IX. To be honest, like at least. Maybe not like a full, like I wouldn't want them to go full 3D or something. Like that would be, you know, if they use like the same engine for Final Fantasy 15 and remade it with that, I would be very, very upset.
Yeah, it'd be really nice if they had like hand painted backgrounds and like full like
that's
1080, you know,
exactly.
like beautiful. Oh yeah.
Well, look at the Resident Evil HD remaster and Resident Evil 0,
perfect
right?
example. Yeah.
Like that game. I hadn't played Resident Evil since I played on the the first PlayStation 1, and man, that game is beautiful. And I never had a GameCube, so and it even looks better than the GameCube version. It's it's great. I would love those static backgrounds. Yeah, I'd love to see a Final Fantasy 9 if they could
But I mean,
do
even
an HD
that
remaster similar.
Yeah, or for instance, like the best. That's a great example. At least the one on GameCube of a remake. That was a great remake from the original game, or Tomb Raider when they did the anniversary edition.
I remember that.
That was awesome to kind of play it in the brand new engine with all these new stuff, and it was still the same game. But that wasn't that wasn't a remaster. They didn't just take the PS1 game and polish it up a little bit, whatever. That was a full remake, and that's something where you're talking about that big of a gap from when that game was released compared to when the original game released, which I think was almost I think it was like 6-7 years or something, or might have been more. To me, that's where you start looking at a full remake with the newer technology, because it's gotten to the point where you can't just touch something up and kind of make it acceptable.
Right. And then I wonder, well, also we have Resident Evil 2 remake, right? And that is a remake because PlayStation 1 game to a PC PlayStation 4 game.
Yeah.
It really depends on the game, though, I guess. Like, I think that's the ultimate point we're all trying to get to, right? It's just like if it's a recent game over the last sort of 5 years or whatever, you can totally do a remaster, but it gets a bit trickier like the further it goes back.
Yeah.
So right.
It's pretty much, that's what I mean.
But we should probably move on to Evan's topic of the week. Do you want to lay out what you want to talk about, man?
Yeah, so my topic for the week is game leaks. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because of the recent God of War 4 leaked concept art. And there was a bit of a discussion on Sifted. I think it was actually someone started a thread. It was like game leaks and games journalism or something. And we got into it in a discussion of like leaks, right? They're going to happen. They're not going to stop, but they do kind of suck sometimes. They really suck. Yeah.
I hate game leaks.
It's and this was the discussion. Some people didn't really care. Some people, well, I guess personally for me, I think they do suck, but they're not going away. And I said this on the thread as well. It's like they're going to happen if it's, I think it was like Nerd Leaks. This website, they leak the God of War 4 stuff.
I love that name, by the way.
Yeah, Nerd Leaks.
Original.
It's like WikiLeaks for gamers, I guess. For nerds. And if it wasn't them, it was going to be someone else. And I think Shane, basically laid it out as well. He's like, look, if people are going to click on it, people are going to find a way to leak stuff. Yeah. So, I wanted to talk about that. I'll throw this one to Tom. How do you feel about leaks, Tom?
Well, so here's the thing. As a gamer, I think finding out leaks is kind of cool sometimes, to find out about stuff that's coming up or is going to happen or whatever. So I don't, but the thing is, at the same time, I don't exactly support them, because again, it goes back to a sense of entitlement. We're not entitled to that information. And that was the whole thing I think you were mentioning. It was Kotaku had a whole article about how they were blacklisted by Bethesda and Ubisoft for leaking information about, I think it was Assassin's Creed and Fallout.
I remember that article. Yeah.
Yeah. And basically they were kind of complaining about how they were blacklisted because they leaked all this information. And it's like, it's a really kind of moral, I don't think it's even a moral gray area to me. It's kind of just like, you shouldn't be leaking. You're not on some moral high ground because you're leaking news or information, unless it's something like, this stuff like, what was it a while back with, I think it was Stardock, or not Stardock. It was something where there was like a DRM software. It was something that was made by Sony, but it was basically ruining people's computers and locking things out. And without that actually being reported on and kind of leaked out, that would have been a whole different thing. But when you're leaking stuff like a new Assassin's Creed game is coming out. You don't have some sort of moral high ground when you're leaking that information, because nobody's actually entitled to that. And if a publisher or a developer tells you this information and you leak it out, you're wrong for doing that, as much as your readers want it. And it's kind of a whole nother issue with journalism and how basically we live in a clickbait world at this point.
Yeah, if people are going to click on it, right? If they knew that story didn't give them clicks, they wouldn't have leaked it, right? But of course it is, so they're going to do it. Yeah.
Well, I think, you know what, that's the other thing, is like, from the way, just referring to that article, the way it was written is, I don't even think it was just about the clicks. They really kind of felt like they had the moral duty to leak this information, is the way they put it.
It did have that angle, didn't it? I do remember that.
Yeah, for me, like when that article was sort of brought out, it's like a lot of people were to or against like the whole Kotaku thing leaking and like getting blacklisted. But ultimately, it's like Tom was saying, the whole privilege aspect of it. Like, Kotaku think they've got the privilege to leak a game, which is fine. You know, that's their job. They are there to report on the news. Whatever news they get, they should report on it. But the privilege aspect of it is where they think that they should still continue to get review copies of games and still, like, have a normal sort of, treadmill going like they shouldn't normally do. And it's like, no, Ubisoft are probably going to react to that, just like Bethesda did when they leaked Fallout and their previous Skyrim game.
Yeah.
And it's like, there was multiple cases of it as well. It wasn't, I don't think there was, I think Kotaku leaked like the last 4 Assassin's Creed games in a row.
Yeah.
Put it that way. That's why they got blacklisted. It wasn't just for the one thing. And they sort of framed it in that article to say, we're the victims here. It's like, no, you leaked the games like multiple times. And like that, there's millions upon millions of dollars going into like marketing for these things, and like for every single game.
Yeah.
And just one leak like that ruins all of that. Like if gamers find out about something too early, it's like, we all know like how much damage marketing can do to a game now. Like over the last few years, especially with like E3 and stuff, like we learn about a game like 3 years before it comes out. Yeah, it damages it to hell, and that's what leaks do. They leak it too early sometimes, and that's the main reason why I don't like them. But
yeah, and yeah, it's kind of like people agree that they suck, but also know like it's not really going to change. And the whole like entitlement thing, like setting that aside, I just think they suck because just going to E3, like they kind of ruin potentially. The bad thing about them is they ruin like these classic E3 moments. Like, and one thing recently, last E3, I'll bring up is I don't know if you guys watched the GT crew watching E3.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Okay, like that classic like Huber and Ellis moment when
Shenmue 3,
yeah, like, and then it was like Final Fantasy 7, right? They
Yeah,
and then they're like
Final
waiting
Fantasy
for it. And it's
7
like
one.
Yeah, and it was like remake, and then the next trailer was Shenmue 3, and just that classic moment of those guys like absolutely losing their shit.
Yeah,
it puts a smile on my face. It's just, and
yeah,
like
that's the best thing about being a gamer at E3 as well. Like E3 is like Christmas for us, right? Like every single year we're sat down like, oh, what are they going to announce? What are they going? Like if one little bit of information comes through about a game, like if we were told last year before the Sony press conference that Last Guardian was going to get shown, that Final Fantasy 7 Remake was announced, and Shenmue 3 was coming. If we knew about them 3 things, that conference would have been ruined. I mean, completely, like, that would have blown Sony's whole, like, thing wide open. And it would have been horrible.
Yeah, it's like, there's Christmas presents under the tree, and, like, you like, kind of open it early. You're like, well, it's not as special now, Christmas morning.
Yeah.
What you're getting.
I mean, that's for I get that. I totally get that for most gamers. I mean, personally, I'm somebody who likes knowing things, I guess. So like to me the leaks are I'm totally fine with knowing that information, but I get I get people who want to keep it a surprise.
Right.
And yeah, it does ruin things. But that's the other thing to it. When they were those Kotaku and whoever else was like basically woe is me articles about how they're blacklisted over this stuff. It's like, you also, you're ruining it for these people as well. Like, it's not just the companies, you're ruining it for the fans as well. And again, you don't have the moral high ground. You're not exposing some big thing. It's a normal thing that would have come out anyways. That's not even controversial. Like,
it depends. It depends how games leak as well for me. Like, it depends on the game as well. Like, when a Battlefield leak comes out, it's like, oh, the next Battlefield's going to be set here. And it's like, oh, okay, whatever. It's like, that's why I don't think the Assassin's Creed ones were that bad. You know, it's just like if it was just them leaking like the information about it, it's like, oh, the next Assassin's Creed, the next one's in London. You know, if that's like, all right, whatever. But the fact that they've always got like physical things is what makes it worse for me. And then when they actually show the game like in its crappy sort of like pre-alpha state, and it's like, oh, really? Because now that's the image of the game that everyone's got for the first time. That's the worst part about it for me.
Yeah, that's and like that's one reason like I like E3, because you know you get these carefully tailored teasers and trailers. That it's not a leak. It's not just concept art. They're like, you know, it's like a movie trailer. Like, you want to create buzz and you want to get people excited for something, so you kind of dress it up and you make a show of it. And that stuff is really, really awesome. Like, I love those moments. And then if it's like, oh, here's a concept art. Oh, well, now I know God of War 4 is coming out. It kind of looks cool, but you know, if that were like some E3 moment where they dressed it up and did a little song and dance, it might have had more impact. And it would have had more impact than it's going to now. Yeah,
it's the equivalent of like a Star Wars, like the new Star Wars movie that came out, like when a certain character died. Spoiler alert, you know. Like if a month before, or even 6 months before, like if 6 months before there was like a production photo of like that certain character like lying on the ground with like a lightsaber wound like through his chest or whatever, you know, it's like if we saw that and like there was no text, no information, it's like, oh, that dude's dead, you know. Or that person's dead, sorry. Yeah. It's like, how much would that have sucked? That would have been awful. That would have been the absolute worst.
It would have lost its impact.
Yeah. Completely. And then you go into that movie 6 months later, just like we go into these games 6 months to a year later, and we're playing and it's like, oh yeah, this is coming. Okay, I knew about that. All right, next. It's tough, especially when if you're one of them gamers that are just really hyped up on certain games where you go into media blackout completely.
Yeah.
Because you don't even want the previews to ruin it. So then when this what publication just shows up and says, oh, by the way, this is going to be the next game, here's all the information. It's like, oh, man, really?
Yeah, people... and I mean, sometimes it's like publishers want to do damage control because it's like, this is going to leak, let's just do it ourselves, right? And they might not even want it out there yet.
Yeah, that crawled me. Like last year, the Bethesda press conference, that really, really annoyed me, actually. That was one of the worst things that Bethesda have ever done for me, is where they pre-announced Fallout 4 before they showed it at the conference.
Right.
And they announced it 2 weeks before the actual conference, and they showed a trailer. And it was like, do you have any idea how much of a showstopper that would have been if Bethesda just came out and said, what are we working on? It was like, is it Elder Scrolls? Is it Fallout? Like, oh, what are they working on? And then they came out in this massive like Fallout blowout for like 45 minutes. That would have been one of the great moments of E3. Yeah. I mean, it was a great conference, don't get me wrong, but the fact that they announced it 2 weeks before sort of, I don't know, it sort of lost it for me.
Was Fallout, I mean, we kind of knew it was coming, but what before they did that, do you remember? Yeah, what was exactly leaked about it? I don't
the
remember.
Script, the original script was leaked.
Yeah, the whole script,
character.
The setting, everything, pretty much.
Okay. Oh yeah, that's right. Everyone was talking about like Boston, right?
Boston, yeah.
That's when Kotaku got blacklisted.
Yeah.
So it's like you can kind of get mad at Bethesda, but I think at that point they were just trying to do damage control because they just figure like, this is, if we don't do this now, it's going to get out there. Let's try to control it as much as we can. So yeah, if there's always going to be people that want that stuff, people are going to click on it, you know. So yeah, people are going to find out about it. That's the thing.
Like, and that's no matter how much like anybody could sit there and say that, yeah, leaks are bad. But you know, at the end of the day, we're all going to read them. We're all going to click on it. If you see something about that, unless you are really dedicated to that blackout, chances are you are going to click on them.
No, you are right. Like when I think I didn't even see the picture, but I heard, oh, God of War 4 concept art leaked. I was like, all right. Yeah, and like, what did of course I clicked on it and I looked at it. So yeah. I'm to blame.
Guilty for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
Exactly.
don't blame publications for doing that though. You know, I don't blame Kotaku. Like, if I was working at Kotaku, this multi-million-dollar like company, you know, like, and someone fed me some information saying, "Oh, this is where the new like the game settings are going to be." It's like, here's some pictures and stuff. Like, yeah, fuck yeah, I'm going to post it. Yeah, of course. Like,
See,
it's
like
because
I don't know.
if you're working for like for a per hit counter sort of thing, like if you get 10,000 views versus a million views, you know, you get paid differently. So yeah, your livelihood sort of depends on it. So I get why they do it.
Right. And then
Like,
if
I
you're
don't blame them.
like, for example, Vin, if you're the one that leaked it and then all the other websites take that story, like you will be mentioned as the one that leaked it. So like, it's like this giant spider web that comes out. It's like, oh, okay, he's the guy that leaked this, or we know Kotaku is the one that leaked the Assassin's Creed stuff. Like everyone remembers that.
Yeah, I mean, so like I get that. I totally get that. As far as your livelihood, your money depends on it, all that stuff. But like, so I do music reviews and stuff, aside from gaming, and I get information sometimes before albums come out, before bands do whatever, and I don't know, like I as much as it would be nice to leak that information and get all those hits and stuff, I still want to maintain some sort of integrity.
Sure.
Yeah.
And be like, you know, unless this is, you know, sometimes publishers and sometimes they will actually leak things out and tell people to leak them. That is actually something that happens. But unless I knew that's where I was getting my information from, is that it was directly coming from like they wanted it out there, I don't know. Like I wouldn't buy into that system, because I think that's a real huge problem with games journalism today. And I don't think it's fair to say, blame it on just, oh, I'm doing it all for the money, so that's why I'm going to keep doing it for the money. I mean, somebody has to stand up somewhere and say, hey, this isn't, you know, we're ruining the industry with this garbage, and it has to stop somewhere.
No, I mean, it is all about integrity. I mean, that's literally all it comes down to. I mean, I personally know a lot of stuff which is coming out of Ubisoft in the next few years.
Yeah.
Like, I'd never tell anyone.
Yeah.
Like, I know exactly where Assassin's Creed's going. I know exactly where other IPs are going. But it's, like, I know journalists as well. Like, we all talk to Shane on the site on Sifted. But, you know, I'd never message Shane and be like, oh, by the way, Shane, this is going to happen in the next couple of years. Like, I know that would be huge for him, but I'd never, you know, it's just down to, like, integrity, basically.
Well,
that's it.
Well, Vin, it could be huge for the podcast. You got something you want to something you want to tell us? You heard it here first.
Yeah, there is a new game coming out of Ubisoft. It's a video game, and you use a controller.
Whoa!
All right,
no way.
I know. But yeah, it's probably a good point to stop.
Yeah.
Move on.
I mean, yeah. So I don't know. Like, do you think this? So Tom, you like, you know, there has to be a point where like someone has to, you know, stand up.
Yeah, I mean, I know Polygon and Kotaku are never going to, because honestly, no offense, but like those, I really do not trust those sites. I think they have no journalistic integrity at all.
The scoop sites. Yeah.
But I think at some point you have to kind of look at yourself as you're contributing to an industry and say, am I a problem? And that's where it kind of, you have to stand up and say, okay, recognize I'm a problem. Yes, it's by being problematic is making me tons of money, but I need to stop doing this and maybe start turning other people this way. And I was going to get to,
like set an example, basically.
Yeah, essentially that. And I mean, like the only time I don't mind somebody leaking or breaking a publisher's trust, I guess, is when it comes to review embargoes. And if it's a bad game that people need to be warned about, especially people are pre-ordering. And I mean, that's a whole nother issue, but
just don't pre-order. That is the message I would put out to any listener we have. Don't ever pre-order again. Wait until review.
Never pre-order a game. There's no point anymore. But like, I think it might have been Fallout 4. I think, I'm not sure what it was. A game. It was recent. But I know somebody who was reviewing it, and there was literally a review. There was an embargo on the review embargo. They couldn't talk about the embargo until a certain date.
Yeah,
well, that's some weird
And because it, and if the game turns out bad, or if there's like issues that people need to be warned about, I can totally forgive a games journalist or a site for breaking that. But if all you're doing is breaking information that you got from some source or whatever, even if it's real information, even if it's a real source, that's so sketchy to me. Just because you're, as much as I want that information, as much as everyone I know wants that information, we don't need that information.
Yeah, that's true. So, okay, so just to wrap this up, do you guys think that anything's going to change in the future?
No. I don't think anything's going to change.
Never.
And not for the worse. I mean, there's always going to be scoop sites and there's always going to be review sites. I think they're two separate entities, and people should always remember that. Kotaku is a scoop site. The old Game Trailers was a review site.
Yeah.
And there, it depends like how you want to interpret the industry, but they're always going to exist. Yeah. For the better or the worst.
Yep. It's not going away.
No.
All right. Yeah. So, Vin, what's your topic? Actually, no, you should do that. You can cut that out. I don't know. Who do I think I am?
The co-host. You can ask me. It's fine.
I suppose I can.
You're allowed. Go for it.
Well, no, I was trying to think of a segue, but I have none today. I have none this week.
No, it's all good. No terrible segues.
So, Vin and I live in Japan, and you could say that something Japanese production value and the fall of it.
Yeah, all right, okay. So we'll move on to the last topic, which is actually my topic of the week. And this week, I wanted to talk about the fall of Japanese production value in video games, because I think everyone sort of knows, over like the last 10 years or so since the PS3 came about, the Japanese games industry hasn't really been keeping up too well, which is too bad. And it's more down to the sort of production value, which I want to talk about, not like a choice in how Japanese games are in their weird, wacky ways or anything. But just in general, like as a whole, like Japan used to be like the front runners of the video games industry, but now they're sort of the bottom runners. They've completely changed their angle. And so I wanted to discuss how they got there and why they got there. But I'll kick this off with you, Evan. Like, what do you think is the core reason behind like the sort of fall over the last 10 to 15 years of the Japanese games industry?
That is
in production value.
That is a big one. What am I trying to say? I don't, do you want to start this first?
Yeah, sure.
I have a point, but I can't really wrap my head around it now. I don't know. Like, what do you think?
I sort of think that like a lot of it's a lot of contributing factors. Like I sort of know what the reasons are, but it's kind of strange that Japan hasn't reacted to it is the main thing that I'm probably trying to get to. It's like the reason behind it is like Japan had a massive sort of economic boom in the 90s, and that just dropped off. And they hit this. They had a massive economical crash basically, and after that time, for like a good 5 years afterwards, they were sort of trailing off, and that's just when the PS2 was sort of coming to an end. And because of that, they had all this money to throw into production for the PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2. But then as soon as it came to the end of that generation, PlayStation 3 came out, it sort of just completely switched to the West. And I think a lot of it to do with the games as well. Like Japanese RPGs were really popular in the early 90s and the late 90s, but then not so much in the late 2000s, It's like first-person shooters started to come around. I think what you brought up with like the Xbox, like when the Xbox was released after during the PS2 or whatever, Halo came out, and Halo became huge. I think Halo has a lot to do with like how the industry changed at the time, because we had
no. I think that's what I was trying to come around. Is like, once the Xbox got big and Halo became this, like the first person shooter on a console became this thing, right? And since then, it's like the popularity of first person shooters has skyrocketed, and that's not really Japan's thing. Yeah. Right.
Well, they don't like violence, sort of thing, Well, they say quote unquote violence, but they like cartoony violence, but not like if it's war or something and it's like in your face and you're shooting people with bullets and you see the blood split out, then it's not sort of taboo over here.
Yeah, and I think it kind of confused them a bit. Like it's not really what they're good at making isn't first person shooters, and there's always room for Japanese games, but I think that was the start of them kind of being left in the dust.
Well, I was gonna say, just in line with that is not just the first person shooter. If you think about it, the Xbox was kind of the start of consoles pushing more towards PC like gaming, and where they kind of started to incorporate a lot of elements that made the PC world what it was, like the fully featured online gaming, the how multiplayer was huge, first person shooters, and that wasn't a Japanese thing. PC gaming in general there wasn't a lot of Japanese companies making PC games. Like JRPGs on the PC were almost non-existent. 10 years ago, 10-15 years ago. And I think that's one of the things is as the console started to kind of push more towards a PC like experience in a lot of ways, I think the Japanese companies kind of got left a little bit behind, and weren't able to kind of capture that.
Yeah, I think a lot to do with that is like the Xbox as well. Like with the original Xbox, that was like the architecture of the Xbox PC was hardware. Very much a PC.
Yeah.
So I think like Western developers, when they came from developing games for the PC, because most developers back in the day before PlayStation 1 or whatever, they were all like PC guys, right? It's like Blizzard and like all the guys working at Valve and stuff. But then when the Xbox came out, the original Xbox was like, oh, this is basically just a PC. We can make console games really easily now. I think that had a lot to do with it.
Yeah, and then going back a bit about like online multiplayer or competitive online multiplayer, that's not really it's not as popular in Japan as it is like anywhere else.
No, you're right.
Like in the West. And while that stuff gets more popular, it's like these Japanese developers don't really know potentially how to make a good, online multiplayer experience, because it's just not something that the average Japanese gamer is interested in.
Yeah. Like, and that's the thing. There's still a lot of Japanese games out there, obviously, but a lot of them don't make it out of the West, out of the East anymore. I mean, me and you live in Japan, Evan. We see so many games like on shelves are just like, I've never even heard of that. And that happens a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's like a good 2/3 of games don't even get out of this country. And I think that comes down to one of the other major problems, which is they're making games for Japanese people, which sounds obvious.
Yeah, and I think they know it too.
That's
a lot of developers
that's it,
know that.
Right? Like they know exactly what they're doing, but that wouldn't be a problem. Like, it's totally cool that they're making stuff for their own nation. Like, I totally get that, but at the same time, when they're marketing to the rest of the world, where 75%, if not more, of all their games like are sold outside of Japan, which market do you go after? You go after that Western market, but instead they tend to focus on their own sort of nation before they do anything else, which is good for some games. I mean, Nintendo have always been successful with that. They've always done Q&A with their Japanese sort of customers rather than their Western customers, which is totally understandable because them games are very Japanese. But
right.
For other games, not so much.
It sometimes it feels like in terms of gaming in Japan, like I'm in a different world, because every now and then I'll go to Yodobashi Camera, which is essentially like a electronics outlet like Best Buy or something like that, and in the gaming section, which I think is kind of cool, they have like the top like top 5 sellers for each console, and they'll have like a poster, or they'll have the game set up and kind of like on a table. And every time I go there, it's like, at least for like PlayStation 3, it's like, One Piece fighting game, Naruto, and this other, and then some Japanese baseball game. I'm like, what the, like I would never play any of these games, and these are the top sellers in Japan. It's like totally different.
Well, that hits on a good point. I mean, the Japanese gamer is very different to a Western gamer. Stuff that they like over here is just completely different to what they like in America. Like, but it's
right, and even mobile games as well. Look at like the top mobile games in Japan are Monster Strike and Puzzle and Dragons.
But it's interesting. Like, in terms of like production value, though, on most of these games, it's sort of like once they finished up with the PS2 era, that was it. That was like the end of their skill set sort of thing, which is really weird, because like games now, like if a game comes out on the PS3 or the PS4, like you look at it, it's like that doesn't look current gen. It looks like a last gen game up-resed, but at the same time, like they'll focus their attention on certain things but not other things. So like character models in Japanese like video games in general are really like high production value, like really well designed, well, quote unquote well designed, like nice animation, all this sort of stuff, voice acting really good, but then the backgrounds just look like garbage, you know? It's like, it's really weird to see that sort of divide between them.
Yeah, I think like looking at like these games like One Piece or Naruto, like some of that stuff, yeah, it does look good, but like I think a lot of Japanese gamers don't care about some of that stuff. Like they want this arcadey kind of experience. Yeah. And just some of the stuff, it's like weird. It's just like these weird canned animations or just like player movement. Like a lot of Japanese games that I play, like even more recent games, are just it's a bit bad. Yeah. And it seems like that's not something that bothers them.
Yeah,
I don't
in
know.
terms of development though, they actually focus way too much on characters rather than anything else, which is really strange. Like when I was first applying to studios in Japan, like every time I had an art test or something, because like when you go into like interview process or something, you have to do an art test to see if you can sort of match their style. Every single time if I'm ever asked to do that in Japan, it's always a character. Always a character. It's never like, oh, draw as an environment for like this sort of setting. Never. Even though my portfolio is filled with environmental work and it's got characters in and stuff, they will always ask me for a character, because an artist, quote unquote, in Japan, in the games industry, is like, you're always doing characters, you know? It's like, it's just very little to do with backgrounds. It's really strange.
Well, that's a really good point, because the character is the most important thing. Like look at like every prefecture in Japan has a character. Like Kyoto has a character, Osaka has a character, and they're like, how do you want to say? It's like an advertisement for the prefecture. Yeah. Built around like kind of this cute character. Or look at Japanese junior high school kids. They walk around with like Winnie the Pooh keychains and like Chip and Dale keychains. Like they don't know anything about the actual history of those characters. They just like the way they look. Yeah. Like Disneyland in Japan has built themselves around the characters. Like they don't watch any of the cartoons. They didn't grow up with them. It's like, oh, Chip and Dale, they're cute. Or like Toy Story's popular over here. The characters are like, I've seen kids that like, the Little Green Men. They love the Little Green Men. They have their keychains. They have their pencil cases and stuff. They've never even seen Toy Story.
Yeah. It's crazy, right?
Or like Monsters
That
Inc.
happens a lot.
Sully
that
and
really
Mike.
does happen a lot. And
yeah.
It's strange, like how they sort of attach themselves to some characters rather than the world a lot of the time, you know? But yeah, it's definitely evident in video games. But how about you, Tom? Like, what was like the last like good Japanese game you played?
Oh, last good Japanese game I played. I want to say.
See, this is it right here, right?
I want to say like so Final Fantasy 12 probably. I mean, I briefly played Folklore, which I'm pretty sure that was a Japanese game. For the PS3.
I remember that game. I never played it, but I remember the box art. Yeah. Was it an early
pretty
PS3
early
game?
But it was actually a lot of fun. I played it. I don't remember a lot about it because I only played it like really briefly. It was a Japanese game. Okay. But yeah, that one, I mean, as far as playing, but as far as remembering, probably Final Fantasy 12, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there are Japanese companies that are keeping up, I can't say it's every single, I'm just talking about like the majority, but like From Software, obviously pumping out the Soul series, they're doing really well. They're probably actually the only company right now that are really keeping up with sort of deadlines and the production value and, just keeping up with the current generation. But outside of that, it's sort of tough to find hitters, like Platinum Games are very hit and miss.
Yeah.
Like they just released, like they have really good games like Bayonetta, but then at the same time, they have games that look like Star Fox. And it's like, it's like one game looks like it was from the N64 and one looks current gen. It's just really, it's hard to juggle that, like, as a whole industry,
Yeah. I mean, maybe I guess Nintendo games in general, if you're going to talk about those, I guess those work.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like if I'm trying to think about like really good, like high production value, really good experiences with Japanese games, like Nintendo's the easiest one to go back to, like, and the kind of like one of the only ones. Like you can always count on, say what you will about the Wii U or Nintendo like trying to figure out what the hell they want to do. Like they make quality first party games, and the production value in their games is usually almost always top notch.
Sure. They have that gold seal of quality for a good reason. I mean, I always believe it as well. Like, like the only bad thing about Nintendo for me is just how scattershot all their games are. You know, it's like, okay, a Mario has come out. Like we have to wait another 7 months before something else comes out. You know, it's just the really. I wish there was more Nintendo studios in Japan. You know.
Stuff.
But yeah, they're always really high quality for Nintendo. But just I don't know. That's the rest of the industry. It sort of feels like they hit the PS2 era, and then that was it. This is where we're going to keep our skill set. And then when it came to the PS3, they started just making mobile games instead. You know, it's like they just completely left console out. It's like, okay, most of Square Enix games that come out right now are mobile. And that's probably where the majority of their income comes from. Because the average gamer in Japan spends a lot more money on mobile games compared to the West. Like in the West, like the average gamer spends like up to $5 a month or something. In Japan, it's $40. So it's
and I think Japan's in a really weird kind of area because they're good at making like, and this is kind of, I'm painting Japan with this very broad brush just to kind of prove a point, but like there's no like indie games, there's not a lot of Japanese like indie developers. Like in indie games aren't
hardly any.
Even that hardly any, like even popular. And I think even these bigger companies, I think they're just at a point where like they don't really know what's going to make them money, so they don't want to take these big risks with money. Like From Software, you know kind of where Dark Souls is going to be, right? They know what they're doing with that series, but outside of that, you don't see. It's just this weird thing where like there's no indie games, but there's these big companies not taking risks with bigger projects. Like, it's weird. The climate here is I think they don't really know exactly like what to do.
I think a lot of the future of Japan is unfortunately a lot more mobile games. You know, I think Nintendo are sort of going that way now, and they're one of the last heavy hitters. And it's too bad. You know, it's really too bad because like we all obviously grew up on these games. You know, we grew up with Metal Gear Solid and Final Fantasy, and you know these amazing games, but it sort of feels like this end of an age, you know.
Yeah, actually, I should take back what I said about not knowing what to do. They know what to do, and it's mobile gaming because they can make a lot of money off of not a lot of development costs.
I think that's the ultimate point, really. I mean, they're not willing to take that risk with the money. So instead of making a high quality PS4 game, they'll prefer to just make 3 mobile games in the same amount of time and just keep pushing them out like at the same fidelity of a PS1 or a PS2 game, because it's way easier to make, and that's what they're used to and that's what they're good at, which is a good thing and a bad thing at the same time. But you know, as an industry as a whole, is it going to help us grow? Probably not. But you know, it's definitely an interesting topic. I mean, we'll definitely see at E3 when they announce the NX to see what that thing actually is, and hopefully it is more of a console than a mobile machine, because then it might push more developers to move back to the old console sort of ways as a whole industry.
Yeah, hopefully so. I mean, I like there's a couple, you know, Japanese indie developers out there, like what are they called? Q Games? I think Q Games and a couple others. Like they're making quality games, and I just hope that they can stick around because they're some of the only people that are really pushing and trying to move the Japanese gaming industry for Japanese gamers in a good direction, away from mobile. It seems like it's kind of a losing battle at this point, but I hope these smaller developers stick around and see if they can turn this around. I doubt it, but
yeah. Well, we'll definitely have to see. We'll definitely be around to see it. So fingers crossed it's all for the bow.
Yeah, the world needs more Tokyo jungles.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah, it does. All right, well, let's move on. We're going to actually come towards the end of our podcast. And first thing I want to do is talk about content callouts. So in this part of the podcast, we actually take a piece of content which we've seen on Sifted, We want to sort of shout it out there in case someone missed it, or if you're interested in a certain subject or stuff like that. So in traditional sense, we'll start out with our guest, which is you, Tom. What is your content call out of the week?
So my content call out would be the 30 minutes of gameplay for Mirror's Edge. If anybody missed that, it was absolutely incredible to me.
Yeah, I'm a huge Mirror's Edge fan, so I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, I think that was a huge kind of sleeper hit. First off, I don't think anybody expected it to do great, and I think people still kind of overlook it or forget about it. Yeah. But there's so much that was good about that game, and people joke about walking simulators, but it's literally a parkour simulator, and it's fantastic for it.
Yeah, the only bad thing about all that footage that came out, it was like whoever was playing it just isn't a seasoned Mirror's Edge fan. And it really crawls me because I played the hell out of Mirror's Edge 1. I 3-starred all the time trials and stuff, so I got really fluid and stuff. So
so you're watching this and pulling your hair out. What are you doing?
Yeah, it's like why aren't you wall jumping and stuff like this? But the whole time I'm watching them go through, there's so many different avenues which I'm just my eyes are constantly dotting around. So you could go up there and jump up there, and I'll get you up there in half the time. But this guy's just traditionally going up ladders and stuff. I'm like, you're climbing ladders! Oh my god! It's horrible.
That was what is it? Where he gets a choice or whatever to go either through the open window or through something else, and he just chooses the open window.
Yeah, it's just the thing I will always promote about Mirror's Edge. You have to learn it before it really opens up.
Yeah,
if you just play it for half a day, which is completely against normally what I normally say about games, but once you really get seasoned at them games, at that game, then it really opens it up. It becomes a totally different beast. The time trials in Mirror's Edge 1 was the best thing about that game. I can't wait for the second one.
I actually, you guys might hate me. I have that game on my PlayStation 3. I played it for 10 minutes.
You're an idiot.
Well, I know that.
Get off this podcast.
This podcast.
So I'm guessing I should go back to that game. I always hear good things about it, but maybe that's it. I didn't give it enough time. Well, I didn't give it enough time. I only played it for 10 minutes.
Well, at this point, you should probably just wait until Catalyst. I mean, Catalyst is out next month. I'm going to buy it day one. I don't care about reviews. I'm excited.
I might actually end up getting. I don't know. I Mirror's Edge was also. To me, I really kind of was not interested in it at all, and I picked it up on a Steam sale for $5 or $10, and I played the hell out of that game and just loved it. It's again, I think everything, the universe they created was just fantastic for it. It was really surprising how kind of in depth it was, and it sounds like they're expanding even more.
Oh, definitely. No, I'm going to be buying it day one. I'm really looking forward to it. But yeah, everyone should definitely check out that gameplay. It looks really cool.
Yeah.
So how about you, Evan?
I guess it's kind of a content call out, but my call out for this week is actually just the Twitch chat for Game Face. And this is kind of, it depends, it really depends if you can catch the stream just because of the time zone difference. But I think Game Face streams on Twitch every Thursday night. At least that's what they try to aim for. And recently I've been part of actually for the last 2 weeks only, I jumped into the Twitch chat and just, hanging out with other sifters on the chat and just kind of watching the show and kind of reacting real time with them and discussing stuff. It's just really fun. I quite enjoyed the last stream. So yeah, anyone, if you haven't been a part of the Twitch chat for Game Face, if you can, if the stream happens at an opportune time where you're free, I recommend jumping in because the last couple of weeks have been really fun.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to E3 because of that.
Oh yeah, it's going to be great.
It's going to be sat on that Twitch. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
All right, Vin, how about you? What's your content call out?
My content call out is to Pacto Factor, number 21, and just seeing him do his little rant against people that criticize him.
Oh yeah, that's
really
right.
Refreshing to see.
Yeah, he swore. I don't think I've ever heard him say the F word.
He dropped the F bomb.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool. But yeah, just watching him sort of tell people where to shove it. It was nice, because the majority of stuff that he does predict probably does come true, and the majority of stuff that he does predict people don't see.
Right.
So yeah, he actually does get quite a lot right, and that's sort of his job. So I think it was a nice little call out just to say, be a bit more respectful these analysts are they're few and far between. So
right, yeah, it's like it's not really fun to tell people when they're right.
Yeah,
people love telling other people
right,
you're
dude.
wrong.
Right, or wrong, I should say.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Then that brings us to the end of the podcast. Just want to say a huge thank you to Tom for joining us today. It's been really cool to have you on here, man.
Thanks. Yeah, it was great. Great talking with you guys. Great being on here.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, sorry it was a bit late where you are. The time differences are crazy these days.
That's cool.
So as we're coming to the end of the podcast, man, do you want to give your final goodbyes, any plugs that you've got, your Twitter handle? You're very welcome to plug anything that you've got. So go ahead.
All right. So I am on Twitter at METALOUD. I actually run a music site. You can find it. It's media-dissection.com. And there's music, there's video game stuff, there's tech stuff, car stuff, whatever. So check it out. Also have a YouTube channel as well if you just search for METALOUD, or you can link to it from the site, and that's where all the reviews and stuff are posted up.
Cool. How about you, Evan?
Yeah, so from a seasoned veteran of the internet to someone who hates their own Twitter handle, no, you can find me at TheStandUser on Sifted, Giant Bomb, and Twitter.
Okay, for me, I am at VinHillArt. You can find some of my finger paintings on there from time to time. You can also find me on Sifted, as always. I am at VinHill, so I'm always on there debating with people, fighting with people, and generally sifting, as you do. But yeah, other than that, I just want to say a massive thank you. I know, right? Tell me about it. That's some awesome word use.
Yep.
But yeah, other than that, I just want to say thank you to everyone for listening every week. It's really cool. We've been getting a bit of a fan base going on. And if you want to join us on the site like Tom has today, then just message Evan on the site, which is at TheStandUser. If you want to message him on Sifted, just let him know what microphone you've got, and we'll try and get you on the show as soon as we can. There is a bit of a list at the minute, so we apologize if the wait is a bit long. It's maybe a month and a half at this point, because we've got so many people that are interested to be on the show. It's been really cool. But yeah, if you do want to be on the show, then get your name in, because it is first come, first serve. We don't prioritize anyone really, other than Brent. We shove him up the list because he makes the site, and we don't want him to kick us off.
Yeah, exactly.
which is a fair point.
Collusion.
Yep. But than that, I just want to say thank you for joining us again every week, and we will definitely catch you in the next one. So everybody, until next time, we'll see you later.
Sayonara.
Bye-bye. Catch you on Sifted.
See you guys on the site.
Jesus Christ, feel...
Wow, what the hell happened at the end of that podcast? We all...